Is this the real Harry? We're seeing this guy down morally more and more. He is the result of an overprotective family. Doubtful he was ever held responsible for his actions, even in the army, unfortunately. So, what exactly can we learn about who Harry is from what he said about giving back to as many people as possible? Now, most of us thought that while he may not be the most intelligent person in the world, on the whole, he was a nice guy. We thought that he was charming and fun and that he had some good energy. He was deeply loved by his grandparents. I mean, it was, after all, Prince Philip who asked Harry to take over as Captain General of the Royal Marines, and that's a post that he had held for 64 years. He also asked Harry to please not let them down, and by that I'm assuming that he also let his grandfather down. Harry was always going over to spend time with William and Catherine and their kids, and so clearly they loved him being around. They took pleasure in his company. Although sometimes we saw some flashes of Harry's temper. He had many friends from school, and he was popular there. He was well liked by almost everybody. We also thought that he was a lot like his late mother, that he was so compassionate, with an amazing ability to get along with everybody, especially young children. Maybe he wasn't destined for a high rank, but still we thought that he was a competent soldier who was appreciated by the men who served with him. When he retired from the military, it seemed like he was settling well into life as a working royal. He enjoyed his patronages, and it seemed like he was a good leader and a figurehead for the Invictus Games. But that was then, this is now, and things have changed a lot. What we have learned about Harry in the past 6 years or so is that either some nasty spell has been cast on him by that demon he married, or maybe the real Harry is here for everybody to see, and boy, is it an ugly sight. Now we see clearly that Harry's weak, he's unprincipled, and he's easily led, and it seems like he lacks all power of reasoning or self-analysis. And what about self-motivation? Oh well, he doesn't have the first clue about what that even means. The fact is, we have always known that Harry's weak and that he is often easily led. Under the influence of friends, that's why, supposedly, he drank way too much, he took too many drugs, and he generally behaved with no consideration for other people. And now he's made things even worse by trying to blame the media and the paparazzi for the way he acted in the past. They were the ones who took photos of him falling out of nightclubs, and he claimed the reason that he was doing that was because that's how they expected him to act. My goodness, it doesn't make sense, does it? I mean, if Harry were able to think rationally, a long time ago he would have understood that, lovely as she was, his mother wasn't perfect, she wasn't an angel, and she was the wrong person to be married to his father. And of course, he still would have loved her because she was his mother, but it would have been better if he could accept that she courted the media and she would encourage photographers to chase after her to get that perfect picture. Diana was a complicated person, and maybe it was because she was desperate, maybe because she was lonely, maybe she needed self-validation. I mean, she was incredibly lonely almost all her last few years, so she would call up friends in the middle of the night, and she would be very demanding of them. But when the boys were not with her, she could be rather reckless and hedonistic. She was just looking for love and happiness, and I'm not going to fault her for that. And it seems like Harry will never accept the fact that his late mother, Diana, contributed a lot more to that divorce between his father and his mother than Camilla did. The Martin Bashir interview was the final straw, but there was a lot of drama surrounding Diana. She could be very demanding at times, and generally her behavior made her very difficult for somebody like Charles to live with. They were just two incredibly different people. And when she was alone with the boys during the holidays, she would turn to young Prince William. She used him as her confidant, and that wasn't fair to him. That's not appropriate behavior in the least. But either Harry just was oblivious to all that, or he knew about it, but he decided to block it out of his mind. To him, it seems his mother is a saint. She could have done no wrong, and she was always blameless. Instead, he blames his stepmother, who, along with his father, he considers to be responsible for every little problem, including Diana's tragic death in a car crash in a tunnel in Paris. She was being driven too fast by a driver who didn't know how to handle that particular car. It was incredibly heavy. And also, the driver was drunk, and according to a report in 2017, that car was also a death trap. Apparently, it had already been written off, and then they rebuilt it. But that is no excuse for what we see from Harry today. He completely lacks initiative. He is not a strong person. He's incredibly irresponsible. I think that basically sums up a lot of Harry's personality, so I don't even need to go deeper on that. But for me, one of his worst characteristics has to be that he doesn't understand how he appears to other people. He doesn't understand how his behavior looks to other people. For example, let's look at the aftermath of that polo game in Singapore. He was grabbing onto that trophy and it seemed like he didn't want to give it back to Nacho. He was completely ignoring people's personal space and he was touching them in ways that were inappropriate and very cringy to watch. But Harry doesn't see anything wrong with that behavior. He just thinks it's funny. He thinks it shows him to be so playful and cheeky. But the reality is, it makes him look embarrassing. It makes him look like a jerk. It makes him look incredibly immature too, like he is still stuck in the mind of a 12-year-old boy. In spite of his therapy that he brags he's had, it looks like he cannot get past the death of his mother. Let's remember what Harry said. I've been involved in many charities for most of my life, and I get a huge amount of fulfillment giving back to as many people as possible. He said that, according to the UK newspaper, The Daily Telegraph. He also said, my life is charity, always has been, always will be. Well, of course, he's a member of the royal family, so he's always been involved in charitable work, but aside from his 3 personal favorites, the Invictus Games and Centauri and Wellchild, he has told us that he didn't really like living as a royal. He didn't like being photographed, and he didn't like being forced to do things that he didn't really want to do. And that could be because another characteristic that Harry possesses is laziness. The fact is, he's incredibly idle. He wants everything handed to him on a silver platter. But even worse than that, he is so delusional that it seems like he really believes what he said about fulfillment and giving back, and that he's such a champion of that. But since he married Meghan and they ran away to California, what exactly has he given to people less fortunate than himself? As far as I can tell, absolutely nothing. And even worse than that, Harry refused to participate in the Amazon-organized event to raise money for Invictus Games. I mean, I understand the pandemic was raging at that point, but still, it could have been done virtually. And the reason given was that he had already signed this contract with Netflix. But the thing about it was, he signed on with Amazon first, and that should have been included in his contract as a mandatory event. And now we're hearing that Harry and Meghan demanded that their expenses be paid for the last Invictus Games, and Meghan apparently bought her wardrobe using money that was supposed to help those poor injured servicemen. I mean, how despicable can 2 people be? There's also a story making the rounds in which it is alleged that the participants don't want Meghan in Dusseldorf at all, and they're not too happy about Harry being there either. When Harry was over in the UK in 2021, he did visit a Wellchild event, but I think that was the occasion about which he whined about when he left. He was followed by the paparazzi, and so he needed to have special security all the time. And what about Centauri? Well, he did play that polo game in Singapore with Nacho. But what else has he really done for that charity since he married Meghan? Has he organized any big fundraisers? Has he even been to South Africa to see the work that's being done? Has he actually done anything to get his hands dirty and do real work to help these poor, unfortunate kids and all those who help them? As far as I know, no, he hasn't. So Harry can talk the talk, but does he walk the walk? Well, no. Now that he's far away from the discipline of his family, with his own office staff and aides to look after his diary and organize his life, it looks like Harry is too lazy to really do anything. He may like hopping up on that soapbox and talking about giving back, but it's only theoretical. I mean, he's made a few small donations to a couple of charities, if Archewell has any money, that is. But actually, getting off his bottom and going out to help people, well, that's way too much like hard work for him. If Harry hopes for redemption, then he needs to take a good, long, hard look in the mirror. He needs to understand how he appears to other people, and he needs to understand what a good-for-nothing lazy guy he has turned into. And then, if he's serious, maybe he can go to Africa and he can actually get involved with some real work helping other people. Then, and only then, may the people of the UK let him pass on the street without hearing a lot of boos. And you, do you agree with this view? If yes, please like and share this video with anybody else who needs it. If not, let us know why in the comments section.